Good morning, lovely people. You're welcome to Nonprofit Solutions Matter Daily Radio Show. Today we'll be talking about building your corporate funding execution team. When it comes to corporate funding, you must have been wondering, if you've been following my series, who do we really need to be able to execute a corporate funding strategy? Who do you need to ensure success? And not just also ensure success, but also sustain that very success. That's why I'm here today, to guide you on the people you need, how to build this team, their roles, and of course, how you can get started. So, how do you build a corporate execution team? So, like I said at the very beginning, corporate funding starts with what we call planning for success, where you actually bring everyone together, from the board members to executive management team, to plan on how to bring in corporate funding. So at the end of that planning session, for that planning session to be complete, you need to be able to inaugurate what we call a corporate funding committee. So after that planning, you have to inaugurate a corporate funding committee and give the participants of that planning session the opportunity to join that committee. So you could have board members and executive management team join that committee because they want to be able to support the plan that has been created. So the committee is basically some sort of a consequence of the plan. So we've planned, how then do we execute the plan? We need a committee that's going to be in charge of the plan, that's going to, negotiate or report anything that has to do with corporate funding back to the board. So that's really where the corporate funding committee comes up. So it's going to be made up of, at the beginning, it's going to be made up of board members and executive management team. If you have, any of these people, somebody from fundraising, development manager, some members of the board, it could be 2 people from the board. They all make up this committee at the beginning. Now, there's still another opportunity for you to integrate staff into this committee, because as I would describe later on how the structure of the committee would work, you would see that there's room for staff and there's also room for volunteers to join this committee. So, but really, when that happens is when the committee comes together and really decide on how do we move forward, who do we need to move forward. Really, the consequence of that is bringing in staff. It could be marketing staff, it could be recruiting a new staff, partnership director, a partnership officer, to join the committee, because of course these people, they do the heavy lifting, so the board and the executive management can negotiate on behalf of the organization. So you see that you need the board members, you need executive management team, you need staff, low-level staff, officers. You also need volunteers. So for example, for organizations that are board-led, you may need to bring in volunteers to be able to support the outreach, because board members may not be the people who do the everyday outreach. So of course, you may need to bring in volunteers to fill up the ranks so that you can be able to execute smoothly. There's also rooms for stakeholders from within the community to join these committees. It is really very important. So stakeholders from the community you serve, right? And also gatekeepers across the community you serve. Also advisory board members could also be a part of these committees, so that when these committees show up to meet executives of these brands, they would know that your organization is properly represented. And also, there's this real shift that happens when a person who receives your impact talks about the impact to these executives, rather than you presenting that impact. So there's also always room for having someone from within the community you serve to join these committees, so that they can be able to demonstrate your transformation when you get to that point. Another key factor of the community, of the team you need, is could be bringing in contractors. So for organizations that do not have staff, organizations that do not really have the manpower, they could bring in contractors to support the committees that you developed within your board, right? So contractors like appointment setters, digital marketers, uh, resource creators, these guys could all come in to support the committee in terms of setting up appointments with executives, and also creating the necessary tools you all need to execute. So these are really some of the people you need to be able to execute a corporate funding campaign, right? So, like I said, from the board to the executive management team, I could be the development director, partnership director, CEO, executive director, to the staff, partnerships officers, marketing officers, depending on what you have, to volunteers. You could bring in volunteers to support your endeavors, depending on if your organization is a board led where you don't have staff, you could bring in volunteers to support your campaign. And of course, you should know the responsibilities they are supporting around. And also, the aspect of bringing in stakeholders is also critical, like I mentioned, finding advisory board members to join your committees, for bringing in gatekeepers from the community you serve, bringing people from the community you actually serve, like people, for example, if you help school children, having a representative of that community within your outreach team. And also, lastly, bringing in contractors who can support your outreach, like appointment setters, digital marketers, resource creators, who can set up meetings for your board members, for your committee members to go in to make that happen. So if you've been following me, you see that I've actually talked about two kind of teams here. One, there's the outreach team, and two, there's the ask team. So the outreach team is really those who go out there to set up meetings, those who go out there to initiate relationship, those who do go out there to start the communication circle, right? And then the ask team is really the team who then go into these meetings to make the ask, to negotiate the deal on behalf of the organization. So regardless of how your setup is, you must have these two teams ready to go, so that the outreach team could be out there on a daily basis, reaching out to these brands, reaching out to these executives to set up meetings, you know and then the ask team, which could is made up of the board members, advisory board members, stakeholders, gatekeepers. These guys could have a particular day where they go into these meetings to make the ask on behalf of the organization, and then they can also report back to the organization as regards corporate funding. So this is really the structure you need to have. There has to be a lot of discipline around the structure, of course, accountability, uh, real accountability, right? And then, of course, a well defined schedule of execution for this to be able to work. So, but this is really a strategy that has to keep running for your organization on a day-to-day basis if you need to be successful as regards corporate funding. So your outreach team is out there reaching out to these brands, reaching out to these executives on a daily basis, and then you have the team that's going on to nurture this relationship and then make the ask on behalf of the organization. And the ask team also goes beyond making the ask. Sometimes they also, do the follow up. For example, you don't want to have a meeting with an executive and then you just leave the meeting ending that way. If there's a prospect of raising money from that executive, you want to be able to keep that meeting, that follow up alive. And that's really where the ask team also comes in. So here you have it, the team you need to execute a fundraising strategy, corporate fundraising strategy for your organization. If you need any help as regards raising money, if you need any help as regards transforming your organization, simply scan the QR code on the screen, talk to me. We'll be happy to help you. We'll be happy to see you successful. Until I see you next time, bye bye for now.